it being 4:05, I think. Yes, 4:05 p.m. We will call to order regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. And we have a determination of a forum, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Director Tommy Favai. Here. Chairman Desi Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gloria Gray. Director Don Deere. Director Scott Houston. Mr. Chairman, we do not have a quorum of the Board of Directors. However, we do have both members of the committee, so we are able to proceed.
We have a quorum of the committee. Thank you. And do we have any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any requests.
And next item up on our calendar is presentations. I don't believe we have any.
That's correct.
We'll move on to the action calendar. The first item is award of agreement for the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility Fire Protection System Improvement Project. Mr. General Manager, please introduce the item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 5. And for this presentation, we do have Orlando Rodriguez, our engineering supervisor.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the board. As EJ stated, if you could please turn to page 5 of the agenda package for a copy of the staff report. So first, I'd like to just start with the kind of purpose of this project. Currently, ECL is equipped with a proprietary fire alarm system, proprietary by Johnson Controls. And the goal of this project is essentially go with a more open source system. Right now, we have selected Silent Night. That allows us a lot more flexibility in terms of work, repairs, maintenance, and so forth, and also basically devices that we could use across the facility. So the board of directors, if you recall, authorized the general manager to issue an RFP, a request for bids for the construction of the project back in September of 2024. The RFP was posted on April 14th of this year, 2025, and the bids were received on May 13th of this year. We received a total of 3 bids. Those could be shown on the table on page 6 of the agenda packet. A couple of things that I want to point out from the bids received is that the bottom 2 on this table, one being from Telenet VoIP and the other one from Minco Construction, they were deemed unresponsive due to the fact that they did not submit the number of references we required for this project. We required 10 references and they only submitted 3. And then the lowest bidder, Amtech Construction, did provide the 10 references, but they did not submit the SBLE form, the Small Local Business Enterprise form. Since then, staff has been able to reach out to Amtech, and they are a small business. So with that being said, it is in the board's authority to waive that requirement if they deem so. So the lowest bid received on this project from Amtech was a total of $264,715. And the engineer's estimate for this project was $295,000. So we are about $25,000 less than the engineer's estimate, which is good. So we did reach out to their references, the Amtech references. All of them have good things to say about Amtech, have done plenty of good work, and would definitely work with them again. The schedule for this project right now is to issue a potential notice to proceed late next month in June with a 90-day construction schedule. And during this time, what the goal is to essentially take the system offline to allow the contractor to just fully work on the system, do what they need to do. So what we'll be doing is placing ECL on Firewatch, which essentially means that our operators, in this case Veolia, or next one maybe pick, would be walking the site every 30 minutes to make sure that there's no other fires present or actually a threat of a fire on site. So we'll be doing that around the clock during the Firewatch, during the construction of this project. So with that, I would like to read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Amtech Construction for construction services in the amount of $264,715 plus a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $291,186.50. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Pavay, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. The lowest, can you go back to the slide again on the lowest parent bidder? You mentioned the name Amtech.
Yes.
Okay, Amtech Construction. So are they the prime and the sub and doing the work, or do they have subs under?
They have one sub, sorry. The sub on is West Coast Fire and Integration.
My second question to this, does this contract, EJ, does this fall under the current community workforce agreement that's under the West
No, it does
Basin?
not.
And what is the threshold, EJ, when it
Under
comes
the
to,
PLA.
yeah, for the PLA?
I'd have to go back and look at it. But projects like this, very specialized, I don't believe that we've run those through. Veronica, is that?
That's correct, yeah. Listen, it's just, it's not it's a specialized type of work, what is required, and that's why it's outside the PLAs or union agreements.
And the contractor, West Coast Construction, are they a signatory contractor to any of the trades that are performing the work?
Good question. I'm not sure. I know that they're authorized distributor with Honeywell, which is the Silent Night manufacturer. But I could get back to you on that, Director.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Okay, I'm good, Desi.
Maybe you can go back and, well, two things. You mentioned that, Amtech, did not submit their SBE, but they themselves are, so they would fulfill the requirement by basically being the SBE. And you verified that they are
Yes.
a qualified SBE firm. Okay, thank you for that. And, maybe a little more explanation. We are replacing this system because the existing system, which was installed in 1995 or thereabouts, is no longer being maintained by the supplier or the vendor that manufactured or installed the system.
No, well, a couple of things there. The current system is completely proprietary.
Right.
But we've had issues with Johnson Controls, and some of those issues, I think you would say like if the parts you could only get to JCI, to Johnson Controls. So if we ever had to replace parts or anything, it's only to JCI, and that's it. There is no third party that we could go to typically. And not just that, like even just to get them out there has just been kind of a headache. Like it takes weeks, if not so. Our goal with this project is not only to reduce the cost in the future if we had to replace anything, but just expedite the process in general, because when a device goes down or something to that effect, the fire department in El Segundo gets notified. So we have to continuously go on fire watch if we can't get them out there to do replacements or maintenance. So right now, with the new system that we're proposing, it's more open source. So we could replace devices or do some of that work in-house along with either a third party, which would also reduce costs, but we could then reach out to multiple vendors.
So over the last 5 years, how many times have you had to do repair work where JCI had to come out and, since they're proprietary parts, provide parts?
Mr. Chairman, I may ask if Uzi can chime in on this, just because I know that she knows quite a bit about the past experiences that we've had.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, as a part of operations and then compliance point of it, we are frequently involved. The exact number I wouldn't have off of memory, but I could tell you that when we've had a problem, we've had to call in the past the proprietary vendor, probably 6 times a month at times. We got to the point where we actually were trying to find other vendors. We have found people that might do the repair, but in exchange, what occurs is, as Orlando said, they still have to get the parts from Johnson Controls. They have no ability to reprogram it. So we get a call every single day and night. And I will tell you that because if the control room can't answer, the call goes to one of us. And because we don't have the ability to change anything. And I would say I could get you an exact number, but they probably had to come out for repairs dozens of times a year in the last 5 years.
So it's more than a couple of times a year, every year.
Absolutely.
And that repairs includes having to provide new parts, which are proprietary to Johnson Control.
Correct.
The Johnson Control, they're a big company. They provide that for a service.
So because they bought, I'll try not to be commentary here. They purchased Simplex and a lot of the other names we used to know, like anything. They have made, because they own a lot of those systems now, it's just like anything. There isn't as much competition if we have to use their parts. And that's why their customer service perhaps is less responsive. We literally drove to some of their facilities trying to get someone. We've done a lot to try to reconcile some customer service, but it's just like any of them, when they know you don't have a lot of people to go to, it's just you get put down on the bottom of the list and they'll get to you when they get to you. And we have had a write-up from a notice to comply from the fire department. They've been very understanding. I'll be honest. They also agreed that we should get away from any proprietary system. This building, we can go out to bid every few years if we want. It is non-proprietary. We can then go competitively and get who we'd like to maintain. And as a note, the fire department does require you to have quarterly and annual inspections. So again, Johnson Controls would always have to do that. We don't have to do that if we have a non-proprietary system.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just one thing I wanted to point out too, we did go through the plan check process with the city. So we got our approval April of this year, so we're all set to go to pull the permit and everything. The plans have been approved by the fire department.
So you also mentioned we would be on fire watch, and this is something then they have to walk around the site every whatever frequency you
30
said.
minutes.
Is that going to cost us any more money?
I'm sure that
I
it did
hope
last.
not. They're already there.
Yeah, they're already there. They just send an operator to basically
Yeah,
walk the
it's-
site.
That would be part of just their daily routine, so it won't cost us.
All right. So, if you're fine with that, we'll move this forward.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is item 5B, amend professional services agreement for the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility Fire Protection System Improvement Project, which we just talked about. So I was going to join both of these together, but I left them separate. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Chairman Alvarez. So again, just to piggyback on the last staff report, West Basin entered an agreement with SBA Architects back in July of 2024 in the amount of $38,800. This was done to a JOA, a justification of award. And the reason we did this is essentially due to their background. They were involved with the visitor center remodel and have knowledge on the fire alarm system. So with that being said, we thought that by going with SBA would reduce a lot of some of the unknowns and things that, you or somebody new would have to deal with. So we entered into a JOA and that was to review existing documentation, perform in-site visits, completion of construction documents, and then also the plan check submittal that we did with the city of El Segundo recently to get that approved in April of this year. So the agreement was later amended and in the amount of $4,560. And this was to provide bid phase support during the request for bids solicitation process. And you can find a copy of the table that shows the amendments and summary of the agreement on page 10 of the agenda packet, excuse me. So right now what we're asking is that the board authorize amendment number 3, and that is for engineering services during construction. So essentially what that details is, review of submittals, RFIs, any other questions that involve the design of the project itself, that if the contractor has any other questions that staff themselves cannot answer, then we would ask the engineer of record to answer and help us out in that way. So this amendment would then put the 1, 2, and 3, or sorry, the original agreement, amendment number 2, and amendment number 3. So the total would be in the amount of $62,315. So right now, what we're asking for is the approval for the $18,955. So amendment number 3. So with that, I would just like to read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to execute an amendment to agreement W3126 with SVA Architect for additional professional engineering services in the amount of $18,955 for a revised total not to exceed amount of $62,315. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Director Fahey, do you have any questions?
No.
Right, so this firm has been the one that basically provided the evaluation, design support, assembled the bid documents, permitted them, or walked it through El Segundo permit process. And this additional addendum is for construction support.
Yes.
Who's gonna do the management? Ourselves?
Yes. In-house.
Thank you. Very good answer. Okay, so with this, the total amount is gonna be 62,000.
Correct. Yes. Total not to exceed amount. Yes.
Thank you. Are you okay with moving this forward, Rick?
Yes.
Moving on to item 5C, approval to proceed with the Torrance Refinery funded task for the Torrance Refinery Water Recycling Plant Capital Projects. Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item begins on packet page 14. And for this presentation, we have Mark Masurlian, our Executive Manager of Engineering and Operations.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, directors. Directors, West Basin has been providing drought-proof source of drought-proof water source to the Torrance Refinery since the mid-1990s, and that is done through our Torrance Refinery satellite plans, and it's done under water supply agreements that we've executed with the city of Torrance and the Torrance Refinery over the years. There's a 1, 2, 3 list under the background that describes the different water supply agreements for both the supply of nitrified water and the supply of boiler feed water. As West Basin, the refinery, and the city continue to negotiate terms of a new agreement and potential transfer of assets, West Basin and Refinery have discussed multiple times the merits and the need of multiple capital improvement projects on the satellite plant. And in 2023, as well as 2024, last couple of years, we've executed amendments to the water supply agreements that had updated provisions. These updated provisions would allow West Basin to implement these satellite plant projects or a portion of the projects by utilizing funds collected from the refinery through fixed monthly charges. But in order for us to utilize those funds, to use those funds against those projects, we would first need to receive written approval from the refinery that we are to do so. After they review the scope of the projects, the need of the projects, understand it, and are bought into the drivers of why they need or don't need to be done. So on packet page 15, you see table A lists 8 capital projects. These are projects that we've been in discussion with them for quite some time. On April 24th of this year, we ultimately received approval, written approval from the refinery to proceed with certain tasks associated with this project. It's not some of them the whole project, but some of them just a portion of the project itself. So the 8 tasks associated with the 8 projects that are listed in Table A collectively would cost around $1.765 million. And you can see that demonstrated in the last column on the right of Table A. As an attachment to this staff report that starts on package page 18, there are more details on each individual project. What are the drivers of the project? What are the risks for us to not implement them? So on and so forth. But in general, the projects aim to evaluate the asset condition and replacement needs. They intend to address regulatory requirements, implement best management practices, address safety items, extend useful life of some of the assets, prevent equipment failure, minimize recycled water supply interruptions, restore lost production capacity, and maintain backup potable water supply capability to the satellite plants. On package page 15 and 16, you'll see some bullet points describing the tasks, the next steps. Some of them are, you can consider them minor, some of them are a little bit more elaborate. We can go through those if we desire to do so. Like I said, since we've gotten approval in April to proceed with the projects, the request here today is to get the board's approval to proceed with those tasks. We have collected the funds. We have collected more funds than the 1.765 described today, potentially to use for the next phase of the project. And so the recommendation today is that the board authorize the general manager to proceed with 8 Torrance refinery funded tasks associated with capital projects CIP 10,108, 10,048, 10,109, 10,084, 10,117, 10,065, 10,093, and 10,104 for a combined refinery funded value of $1,765,000. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add real quickly, I'm not exactly sure of whether or not we have representatives from the Torrance Refinery joining us to watch this meeting. This is part of our contractual process where we reconcile at the end of an agreement, kind of total out exactly what those fixed payments were and the projects that we've been discussing over this time. As Barkev mentioned, we have received in excess of this total amount with or from the refinery. So getting their green light on these on this effort allows West Basin to now utilize those funds for this effort. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Fagay, you have a question?
Yeah, I get a couple of questions, Mark. So each capital project, are they gonna happen simultaneously, or is this gonna be like built out in phases? How does, these projects, work out?
Usually tasks would happen simultaneously, yeah.
And then, so the 1.7 million, is that, what, Torrance Refinery is adding to the projects? Their amount?
That is the amount that they approved us to use for these next tasks. We've already collected.
Okay, got you.
The dollar amount.
My last question is, when will it come out where each project will have a contractor and moving forward with these certain projects?
Some of them very soon. There's a few that call the next task would be to wrap up the design and the package.
Okay.
There's 1 or 2 tasks where they've approved us to proceed with the construction too. And so you will see those coming up when we go out to bid or when we come in with an award for.
Okay, so, I'm okay with this, Director, Desi. But what I like to see at our next board meeting is that to kind of give a timeline on each project, where, you know, where it's at, when construction is gonna start and so forth.
Will do, and let me go through one example of it. In the attachments, there is a timeline. If you go to,
Yeah, I didn't see that brought up, so.
that's
You
okay.
show,
I didn't go through them, so, on. There is a little bit of description of the timeline. We did, you know what, there's why we did take it out. We'll put it back in, and discuss it.
okay, I appreciate it.
Anything else for the panel?
No, good.
So just for clarification, let's just talk about the fiberglass pipe replacement project, 10109. What we're approving here is basically the investigation work, and that's all. We're not approving the entire project.
Yeah, the next step that has been approved for that one, 10109, is to develop the scope of services, complete design drawings and specs, get the bid package ready, but they haven't approved us to bid it.
Moving forward with the project. So the $90,000 that's there should pay 100% of the bid package preparation. Basically, they're paying for all this. Now, bid package is done. The estimated value of that contract is $739,000. Are they gonna pay the full $739,000 also?
The intent is to pay for all of it, and we would not proceed with anything unless they pay for it.
Okay, so they will be paying for all of these projects. I just want to clarify.
If they don't pay for it, we won't take the next,
We'll do it.
we won't take the next step.
Okay. That was, that's my question. Thank you very much. So Torrance Refinery views these as being necessary and wants to move them forward, we should help. With that, we'll move this forward.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next item up is item 5D, and that's award for bulk chemical storage condition assessment.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 34. And for this presentation, we have Camille Castillo, our engineer, too.
Hey, good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. Today I'll be presenting the award of the condition assessment services for the bulk chemical storage condition assessment project. As EJ said, please follow along on page 34 of your packet. The overall goal of the project is to evaluate the condition of the chemical storage tanks located across all the district treatment facilities to assist with planning of future tank rehabilitation or replacement projects. The district's contract operators do perform routine visual inspections of the exterior of the chemical storage tanks. However, the district does not have the qualifications to examine the interior of these tanks nor evaluate the overall tank degradation. So the intent of this solicitation is to hire a consultant who is qualified to perform tank inspections, specifically interior inspections, identify its conditions and life cycle status, and provide recommendations. So on March 25th, 2025, the district issued a request for proposals via the OpenGov system for phase 1 of the project. And phase 1 includes the tank inspections of 11 fiberglass reinforced plastic, otherwise known as FRP, chemical storage tanks located at the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility, and an allowance fee to perform tank inspections for 13 additional FRP and steel chemical storage tanks at the Torrance Refinery Water Recycling Plant. And on April 22nd, 2025, we received 2 proposals from Corpro and MKN Associates Inc. Staff from the district and the contract operator performed a thorough review of these proposals received. And a summary of those final scores and evaluation can be found on page 35 of the agenda packet. Both candidates provided strong proposals. Staff found that the proposal from MKN and Associates Inc. proved to be the best value. MKN and Associates demonstrated their technical experience and expertise with their ability to prepare a professional condition assessment report, and inclusion of an expert chemical storage tank inspector on their team. More so, MK and Associates presented a clear methodology for their approach to the tank inspections by identifying 3 different inspection methods that will evaluate corrosion and aging of the tanks. And they also highlighted the importance of safety and maintaining operation in the facility during the projects. So based on this evaluation, staff recommend the following: that the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with MK and Associates, Inc. to perform the bulk chemical storage condition assessment for the Edward C. Logan Water Recycling Facility Phase 1 and Torrance Refinery Water Recycling Plant tanks in the amount of $220,869 plus a 10% contingency of $22,086.90 for a total not to exceed cost of $242,955.90. This concludes my presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Director Fave, any questions?
Yeah,
Comments?
I have a question. Can you go back to the slide where it gives the 2 contractors? Okay, so, you mentioned MK and Associates is the lowest apparent bidder?
Not necessarily lowest apparent bidders, just the best value.
Okay, so are they the only sole source contractor or do they have a
Yes.
subcontract? And who's the sub?
Pacific Engineering, tank inspectors.
Okay, and is Pacific Engineering or inspectors, what do they actually do?
They perform like interior inspection and they do performance for steel and fiberglass reinforcement plastics. So they've had previous jobs working with chemical tanks.
So there's not gonna be any construction or anything. This is just inspection services and so forth? Okay. That's it. Go to this.
MKN you have on that same table, is there an SBE firm? Okay. Ford Pro was not as competitive as MKN in terms of methodology and approach.
They both are qualified candidates. I think just the presentation that MKN had and the experience that they included was a little bit more applicable to what we want.
A little bit surprising that MKN actually. Okay. And is it MKN or is it because of their sub?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Is it MKN or because of their sub?
Both.
This-
Their sub is really well qualified to perform the task, but it also helps that MKN can prepare.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So does that make CorPro not qualified because they didn't provide a SBE or?
No, the SBE just adds additional points to their score if they are SBE, but they were not, so that those points were not included. But there is a breakdown of the evaluation score, so you could see kind of how those points contributed to MKN's, but it was still relatively close.
So I wanted to compare this with the last, I think it was probably like the first one, the first recommendation that we approved moving forward. And then it mentions that that we were moving forward with this contractor, but they didn't meet the LSBE.
They didn't submit the form.
It is, okay.
Yeah,
It is-
they are SBE, yes.
Okay, so if they didn't submit the form, does that, disqualify them to move forward?
No, not necessarily. That is where the board kind of waived that requirement. That
Okay,
is a West Basin requirement, but yeah, they did not submit the form. I think here, I'm sorry, I think the confusion might be the form is not required in this. This is more on
So this-
inspection services, design services, while the other one is construction.
Okay.
This is professional services versus construction.
okay, all right.
And to the other one is typically, everybody says, well, that's a minor bid irregularity and the agency is free to waive it or enforce it depending on the agency's points at the time.
No, thank you for clarifying it. All right.
Okay, and Corpro did not have a sub.
They did not.
Okay, I'm just a little bit surprised, because I think Corpro is very competent in doing these kinds of services, and they come in a little bit less expensive, and we're sitting here going, and MKN competitiveness comes out of their stuff.
Yeah, Corpro has performed previous assessments, but I think they just didn't put together as good of a proposal as.
And the difference is $13,000 in this case. Not a lot of money, but about 8% of the contract, or 7% of the contract amount. What's the issue with not using Corp?
Like I said,
If we decided that Corpro is just as valuable a service, and save 7%.
I know that for us, when we perform the evaluation, that is just what the scores came out to be, was for MKN.
And the cost is part of one of the scoring criteria, and they did come out.
MKN came out higher in the scoring, even considering.
I appreciate that, but that's the recommendation, and I saw the numbers 87 versus 80 in terms of the overall scoring. I'm just questioning, if you had a different scoring team, they might have come up with a different score. That's neither here nor there. Would Corpro do they would do an adequate job?
Mr. Chairman, I would also add that, as noted in the report, staff did confer with the listed references. And so in totality, you see the scores as presented by that.
Yeah, but
Excuse me,
the references,
panel.
did Corpro get bad references?
I think that the references and then that check just represented, or at least were in line with the scoring. And so I would leave it at that. I wouldn't want to say anything negative about anything, but I stand behind the scoring that you see before you.
But if we wanted to go in a different direction, nothing to preclude us from doing that.
Correct.
I personally would save the money in this case for the type of work that's being done. And I would support moving it forward, but I will express that reservation again. Dr. Pavey, anything else to add, or we'll move this forward?
I just wanted to say that, the 15,000 difference, when it comes to, with MKN, that's good in a good way. And then, when you compare it to construction, you'll never get costs like that comes close to 15,000, right? So I think, I'm looking forward to moving this forward, so.
Moving forward.
Thank you.
With the recommendation.
Okay, so moving right along, the next item up is.
Mr. Chairman, if we could just clarify that, is this being moved forward with the recommendation from the committee, or do you not want it on consent? So the alternative would be to place it back on action at the full board for that discussion.
Let's move it forward as an action calendar item, so we can have this discussion again.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 5E. Extension of the on-call engineering and construction management services agreements. Mr. Gentleman, please introduce the item.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item is actually, I want to note, is a continuation of an information item or discussion that was brought up at a previous engineering operations committee. But I do believe that you, Mr. Chairman, had to leave prior to us getting to that. So it is an action item today for discussion, and it begins on packet page 53. And for this presentation, we do have Veronica Govea, our engineering supervisor.
Good afternoon, directors. Yes, as you mentioned, this item is an item for extension of on-call engineering and construction management services. So West Basin uses on-call services to implement some of their new infrastructures, customer development and rehabilitation projects. And there are two separate groups that we have for our on-call services, one being the engineering design and the other one, the construction management services. Part of the engineering, we do a lot of reports, analysis, feasibility studies, designs, and they also assist us during the bidding process and engineering support during construction when the projects are moving forward. And in construction management, also the CMs do provide not only the administrative component of managing a contractor, but also performing inspections, being the extension of our staff at the field to supervise that the constructions are occurring as anticipated. And they also do have the ability to do the witness testing and resolution and or change orders and claims. So as part of the 2022 on-call services, we awarded 6 companies with the engineering on-call services and 5 companies with the construction management services. Their contracts were for 3 years and they're due to expire in June 30th of 2025. The ceiling for each of those 2 categories was $3 million for each. So looking at the previous board meeting, we were looking at the overall remaining budget, and basically we had 92% still left in the engineering services and 73% in the construction management services. There was a limit of 150,000 on those services, so we have to go most of the times to the open GovS to advertise for other projects to make sure that we will be able to obtain some of the services that we require for other projects. In March 2025, at the annual committee, we presented this information, and in anticipation that we could be going for solicitation of new proposals, we outreach to other companies and just to get some introduction to what we do, what they do, and what potential projects might be coming along our way. In the same meeting, we also presented an alternative in which we could be still utilizing the already existing on-call services and just extend for 1 year, and also increase the ceiling for the minimum task order for the maximum task order amount to $350,000. That amount being for not just the extension, but also in the case that we were going out for new solicitation. So during the meeting, there was a feedback that was received. We review, analyze, and following that feedback, our recommendation is that the board authorizes the general manager to 1, set the maximum value of each of on-call engineering and construction management task order to $350,000. 2, extend construction management on-call services contracts W3033 with AKM Consulting Engineers, W3032 with Gutierrez Engineering, W3036 with Mars Services, W3034 with M&S Engineers, W3035 with MWH Contractors for a period of 1 year through June 30th, 2026, with updated rates for fiscal year 25-26. 3, extend current engineer on-call services contracts with contracts W3031 with AKM Consulting Engineers, W3029 with Black & Beach, W3027 with PR Consultants and Designers, W3030 with Hazen and Sawyer, W3026 with HDR Engineering, and W3028 with Tetra Tech for a period of 1 year through June 30th, 2026, with updated fiscal years rates of 2025 to 2026. With that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Director Pave, any questions or comments? Okay, these are the on-call services contracts, and the purpose of the on-call services contracts is what?
Well, 1, to be able to move faster in the implementation of our projects. When we go out for solicitation of contracts through advertising, it's typically a long period of time. It can vary depending on the ability, like the ability to, to get all these proposals in between 4 to 5 months by the time that we get a contract. So having the on-call services gives us the ability to reduce the period of time, since we already have pre-selected them because they have proven qualifications to perform the work, and be able to issue the request for information and get the proposals much faster. So, and when the contracts, instead of going through the solicitation of obtaining insurances and signatures and other items that are required in order to establish fully execute a contract, having the on-call services, or what we have to do at that point is basically send the task order release, in which basically identifies what the task order is for, with the amount and the signatures. So it's one page, couple of, a week maybe on getting that done versus a whole month on going back and forth and obtaining information.
Thank you for that. Most of these contracts are also for convenience purposes. They're relatively small. They're not major efforts. And one of the things that for smaller contracts, it does provide an opportunity. One, the convenience of the agency to just have somebody there on call. But for service providers, it does provide an opportunity to be readily available and known to an agency. One of the things I think that we have expressed as a board is that we should have more outreach to smaller and a larger variety of firms. If you look at the firms that are currently on that list, they tend to be the same firms, and they tend to be large firms that we have traditionally engaged. And for some of the work that we do, it is appropriate, and they're the ones that are going to be competitive. But for a lot of the on-call work, it can be spread out, in my opinion, to a lot smaller firms. These firms have had on-call contracts for 2 or 3 years now that this on-call contract has been in place.
It's been 3 years for this one, yes.
So for 3 years, they've been there, they've been available. We haven't used that much of the allowable amounts that we stipulated. So it's not used all that frequently. I think that we would be better served if we go out and provide opportunities to other smaller firms to participate in our on-call list. So that's one item. Item number 2 is you're asking to be increasing the authority from $150,000 to $350,000. When you start getting to $350,000 in that range, you're starting getting into larger professional service agreements. They're probably more appropriate to go through the RFP process, as burdensome as it is. It's still a process that gets us more specific proposals and people sharpening their pencils, etc. So I'm not supportive of this. I think that we should come back and go out and solicit again for another 3-year on-call services. And when we do that solicitation, really go out and reach out to small firms and encourage them to submit proposals. I know that staff has been working and trying to increase the outreach and the types of organizations that can contract, but we just should improve the opportunities for firms. So I'm not supportive of this.
If I could just touch on both of those items. First and foremost, I want to tell you that I completely agree with your first point. And to that point, I want to give credit to our staff in the sense that we've been doing everything that we can. The MetWorks programs, West Basin is there front and center, not just in our service area, but outside of our service area. We have a team of people out there promoting the opportunity to work with West Basin Municipal Water District. Our executive manager of engineering operations, our assistant general manager, and our manager of engineering have taken every single meeting that we can get with every firm that we can get one with. One of the things here I would say in relation to this action item is, and the reason why it's only for a 1-year extension, is for us to continue and kind of cultivate that effort to hopefully get additional firms to submit to a solicitation. We think an additional year would help, though we can certainly go out and solicit them. The second point that I did want to make, and I do hear you loud and clear on the $350,000, is that my understanding is that this policy changed some years ago down to $150,000 due to some concerns from the committee and board of directors. You and I have met in our one-on-ones, and I hope that I assured you that any of those concerns should no longer be concerns, as we would always brief the committee and board on any of these actions. The concern here is that $150,000 in relation to the work that would be done is extremely low, and it is very difficult to find things that to give them work. And that does actually limit the firms and the types of firms that will, I think, respond to a solicitation when they see that dollar amount. Smaller firms, yes, may be more apt to do it. But I just wanted to note that because a tremendous amount of work has been put into marketing West Basin and bringing in those small, medium, and large firms for all of the work that we do. But that was the reason for the request. If it's the direction of the committee and board to go out and solicit and do another 3-year, we're happy to do that.
I would like to go out and solicit, and maybe when you come back, we can consider increasing the 150,000 threshold to maybe 200 or 250,000. 350,000 is a huge size contract, not necessarily for a Tetra Tech, but even a Tetra Tech, I can tell you right now, they're still putting out proposals for $100,000 contract. So they're willing to do work and design work at quite a bit lower amounts than that. So I can appreciate that, and over the next 3 years, the cost of things will continue to go up. So maybe we can consider increasing that threshold. Not quite sure to 350 that I would support that, but to 200 or 250. But I definitely think that we need to go out and revisit this and solicit it so that we really can engage smaller firms.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is to staff. So how long did it take for the process when you go out to these vendors and you solicit, their services? How long did it take you to do this? Like the timeline?
The timeline, so yeah, so the whole process is gonna be at minimum of about 5 months. And thinking into what's the process, so it's gonna be like, maybe a week, 2 weeks for us to complete the RFP to make sure that we have everything lined up. And then it's gonna go through OpenGovs. So basically, we need to work with our procurement department so they can upload it into OpenGovs and get the solicitation out. Then the advertisement and solicitation is it's going to be a month. We advise not to do any less for these type of services, so that way it gives the opportunity for all potential proposers to be aware of these. And when we reduce more than that, we get those comments. Can you extend that time? So that's why we're going with 1 more month. Then we're gonna review the proposals and do the interviews. So review proposals, say a couple of weeks, depending on how many proposals we get, but typically it's a couple of weeks. We get an outside panelist too, and then we'll do interviews. So we will have to shortlist and then do the interviews. And then we will need to prepare the board memo based on the selection from all the results of the review and the interview. And so that's going to be a month. It's going to be E&O committee, and then it goes to the board. So that's another month. And then the preparation of agreements and insurance solicitation, documentation of signatures, that's approximately at least 1 month. So that's about 5 months. At minimum.
5 months? Okay. So I know we haven't went, I know this has to go to the board and so forth, but my thinking is that, do we stop, working with these vendors? And, will that hurt us working with these vendors when, we make a decision on moving forward to go out to solicit for new bids? Is there like a hard stop when it comes to,
Yes.
when the solicitations go out, and are we still working with these firms before we go out for solicitations?
So each of the agreements does have a termination date. And so once the agreement expires, we would no longer utilize these firms for services.
So just one item I wanted to clarify in regards to the point. For example, there might be already ongoing projects with them that will not end on June 30th,
Okay,
2025. So those will be extended to finish those particular projects.
got it. Okay.
So to that end, in the last 3 years, how many times have we used on-call service?
In the last, few times, because essentially the amount of the money was limited to $150,000. And on the projects, at least 2-3 of those projects, we actually have to negotiate the cost down because they couldn't meet on the initial proposal, $150,000. It was more, so we have to, again, go back again and negotiate with them, like to cut down some of the task orders in order to make the $150,000.
Okay, but how many task orders have we done?
Let me see, I believe,
Ballpark, and you can come back later on.
yes, actually on page 54, there is a table A. And so for construction management services, there was a total of 5 contracts that were awarded. 1 to AKM, 1 to Mars, and 3 to MNS. And the total amount spent was $221,860. Sorry, can see 862. Can't see the number, sorry. And then for engineering firms, we had 8 total task orders for an amount total of $787,173. And under each consulting firm, you can see AKM having 1 task order, and then Hastings Sawyer having 2, and Tetra Tech having 5. And those totals are cumulative based on those task orders.
So we've used them, but we haven't, it's not like we use them a million times. It's a relatively manageable number.
Because we went out on OpenGovs. We couldn't use them because of the 100.
These are on call. Have them under contract. All you're gonna do is call them up and say, I need a proposal for doing this.
Yes,
That's
but
what I'm talking about. I understood your answer correctly. Between CM and engineering in 3 years, we've issued under the on-call authorization, 13 contracts.
Mhm.
So it's not that many. And relatively straightforward. I don't see why, and the on-call, services that are right now under contract, they'll extend to whenever those agreements are done. Each individual on-call, task order is its own little contract, so it has its own term. And then the overall on-call services expires, you said June 30th. Right? So
Correct.
in a month. But in the next, how about 2 to 3 months or whatever amount of time you had? I think you ended up at 5 months, whatever it was. Which I would challenge you to expedite that process too. But we can go out and solicit a new group of firms. As opposed to just extending this for another year. And I don't see the damage, and I think there's more opportunity in bringing in new firms and at least providing that opportunity. Hopefully, all of the efforts that you guys have made in reaching out to small and medium-sized firms is going to pay off and they're going to participate. And this is a lot easier for them than some of the major larger, design and CM contracts that we have where small firms just aren't going to be able to compete as well. So it provides an opportunity that I think is really important. So I'm not supporting moving this forward. I think we just move on and go to the next 3-year or on-call services agreement and start that procurement process. Okay? Are you okay with that?
How do you want to proceed?
That they will come back with the procurement process or start the procurement process for on-call services for another 3 years. And at the same time, we will evaluate when we issue the on-call services contract for another 3 years, increasing the task order authority from 150,000 to 200 or 250,000.
Well, I think with the, a lot of the uncertainty that's out there, especially when it comes to, on-call services, I mean, the prices are gonna go up, and we just have to remember that this budget may change, right? This budget may change if we go out to solicit, the process again. We just have to remember that the cost is gonna go higher.
That's why the authority would be increased from 150 to 250, but each task order is negotiated on its own terms. And as was just said, some of the task orders, when they first put it out and say, here, give me a price to do this, they come in at over 150,000, and we come back and say, can you do this for less than 150,000? In most cases, most of the consultants, if they already have they're already on the on-call list and are just basically negotiating against themselves, will sharpen their pencil. All I'm saying is, let's move it on. They've had 3 years where they've been on the on-call list. Let's give an opportunity to another group for the next 3 years, and let's just get that process started now and not delay it for another year.
And would this move forward to the board? So the board could discuss it as well, DJ?
That would require an action from the committee to send it to the board. However, if it's the will of the committee, looking back on it, the reason it was brought up in a previous committee was we were looking for some direction. We didn't really receive that direction, so ultimately we were bringing this forward to you now because the agreements are going to expire. And so I think we're happy to proceed. If it's the direction of the committee to go back and solicit new firms, we can do that. Again, I want to give everybody credit for all of the work that they've done as far as the outreach goes. We can go out and see what happens, and hopefully we get numerous proposals that we can look at.
Well, I think I'm more comfortable to, if we're gonna move this forward, I think I'm more comfortable to have the full board consider this on moving forward to put it out for solicitation again. So that's just my opinion.
Right, we'll basically have a very similar discussion than at the board meeting. And if we continue and extend this for another year, we're not doing anybody any favors, per se. We're just delaying, unless we then come back a year from now and say, hey, let's extend it again and extend it again. I don't think it's a worthwhile approach to doing it.
But we're not delaying it for a year, right? We're just moving it to the board
No, we
and
could do
the board can make an action then. And that's a month from now, right?
We could do the solicitation during the year so that we're ready to enter into agreements. But I definitely understand what Director Alvarez is suggesting. If you'd like, we can move this to the full board as an action. It would not be on consent. And we could have that discussion.
Yeah, I'd rather, have.
Here's what will happen. If you continue it, so another year, these same firms, they're all large, will have on-call task order opportunities. And they will have, depending on then if the board decides to increase the task order authority from 150,000 to 350,000, they will have the ability to enter into agreements for design and other professional services to the extent of whatever that task order authority is extended to, either 150,000 or 350,000. That's for a full year. In the interim, yeah, we can go out and we'll solicit and do all of that, but we will delay it for the implementation for a full year. Versus what I think can be done faster, but if I say, fine, the staff's more comfortable with the schedule that's laid out just to us now, they'll be able to go out and have a new group of firms in 5 months, not in 12 months. So, yeah, it is a delay. And it's a delay where maybe there won't be small firms, but I don't want to preclude that opportunity. And
Yeah,
I'd
but
rather
we
see
should
that
accomplish that
opportunity
at the next board meeting, right?
Next
but you're-
board, yeah, but we'll have this discussion all over again and
I'd rather have it on a full board discussion when it comes to a solicitation on,
What we'll do is we'll do that. I will work with staff to look at what that schedule would be like. I think Veronica did a great job of providing it to you off the top of her head and working you through that process. There might be some opportunities to expedite it, but definitely you want it to be in order to allow firms to have the opportunity to do it. You need to leave it open for a certain amount of time, and then you need to go through the process of selection. So I will work with staff as far as what that timeline could look like. Thank you, Veronica, for doing that, because it's kind of difficult to do everything right there on the spot. And then we will be prepared to answer your questions.
okay.
Okay.
So we will move on to item 5F. Procurement of ultraviolet lamps. This one should not take that much time.
No,
General manager, go ahead and just, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can move through this one pretty quickly. For this presentation, we do have Susanna Lee, our manager of engineering, and this does begin on packet page 56.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and Director Pavai. I'll try to move this forward quickly. As part of the Regional Water Quality Board Control Board, it requires West Basin to utilize UV lights to disinfect the advanced treated recycled water at ECL. And at West Basin, the UV system consists of 4 trains with 4 stainless steel reactors, which house a total of 1,152 lamps. And in 2005, Trojan UV system was selected as the manufacturers for replacement of these lamps. And as part of the agreement in 2004, they're guaranteed price to start at $1,000 per lamp with allowance to increase the price based on CPI. These lamps do have a regulated life of 12,000 hours. The last set of lamps we will replace in 2023 in September. Because the barrier system was operated at less than the full capacity the last few years, the lamps have been lasting more than the normal 16.5 months lifespan. They are forecast to approach that 12,000 hours limit in July 2025. So currently, Trojan have given me the lead time, which is 7 weeks. And with the CPI adjustment, the UV lamps is quoted at $168.89 compared to last procured price of $151.65. To avoid delays in receiving the lamps and potentially tariff surcharge, West Basin staff is recommending to procure the UV lamps at this time to maintain the minimal to maintain compliance and without any violations. With that, I will read the recommendations that the board authorized the general manager to issue a purchase order for 1,200 Trojan UV lamps from Trojan Technologies for a not to exceed total amount of $223,000, 695.13. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Director Flavia?
What are these lamps again?
I'm sorry.
What are these lamps again? You mentioned the sodium UV. Okay, okay, gotcha. No questions.
So we do need to replace them. So no problem with all of this. Just the one question was, they're not manufactured in the United States. And the price that Trojan quoted you, the $158 per lamp, is subject to tariff. Potentially, if the tariff comes through, they're going to increase the price. So right now, and we'll move this forward, and you may or may not know, if you call them up on Thursday morning and say we're awarding a contract to you, do they have enough lamps here to right away sign on the line and you're committed, or you don't know?
Asked that questions already, so Trojan representative have responded that as soon as they receive the PO, they will honor that pricing.
Okay, so they have them on this side of the border right now, but the price is gonna go up depending on whatever happens with it. Okay, all right, so let's get this thing done. Thank you. Then the next item is 5G, award of supply and delivery for sodium hydroxide. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this item begins on packet page 60. And for the presentation, we do have Jeremiah Shea, our operations analyst.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, directors. And thank you. If you could please turn to page 60 of your packet, I'm happy to present this item. As the board is aware, West Basin uses several different types of chemicals to process and treat recycled water at the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility and at the satellite facilities. In particular, sodium hydroxide is used to manage the pH of the nitrification feed water so that an effective ammonia removal treatment occurs, and also to neutralize cleaning wastewater. Also, as the board may be aware, typically at this time of the year, we are coming to the board for a full year contract for all of our bulk chemicals. The difference this year is that the new facilities O&M contract that was recently executed with Jacobs stipulates that the new O&M contractor will be fully responsible for procuring all bulk chemicals beginning in September 2025. Given that our current chemical contracts end on June 30th this year, staff did want to extend the current chemical prices to ensure that we had price and supply stability for all of our chemicals during the transition period. And so staff did reach out to all of our current vendors and asked if they would extend the current prices for 6 months through the end of December. All of the vendors agreed to that extension except for our sodium hydroxide vendor. And so staff did go out and issue an invitation for quotes on April 7th, 2025, for a 6-month contract term spanning from July 2025 to December 31st, 2025. Staff received quotes from 4 chemical vendors, and the lowest responsive bid was identified as Blue Angel International, LLC. The results of the vendor quotes are summarized in attachment A. And staff also did an evaluation to determine the low bid based on the expected delivery of chemicals to each of our facilities. Typically, these vendors do price the chemical deliveries differently depending on the size of the tank. And so we took that into consideration. And with that, I'm happy to read the recommendation to the committee. Recommendation is that the board authorize the general manager to award the agreement for the supply and delivery of sodium hydroxide to Blue Angel International, LLC, for a 6-month contract term beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025 at the following unit prices: 38 cents per dry pound delivered to the Edward C. Little Water Recycling Facility, 43 cents per dry pound delivered to the Chevron Nitrification Treatment Plant, 38 cents per dry pound delivered to the Torrance Refinery Water Recycling Plant, and the Juanita Millender McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant for bulk deliveries and 43 cents per dry pound delivered to the Torrance and Carson facilities for mini bulk deliveries.
Thank you. Director Fave, do you have any
No,
questions?
no questions.
I don't either, so let's move on. This item. So that will bring us to the end of our action calendar, item 5H, implementation of the Donald L. Deere Elevator Modernization Project. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item begins on packet page 64. For this presentation, we do have Orlando Rodriguez, our engineer and supervisor for the presentation. But I did want to remind the committee, and I know that Director Favad was not yet on the West Basin Board of Directors. This is a continuation of an effort in the most recent action by the committee and board was that West Basin General Manager was authorized to move forward on the full modernization of the DLD elevators. And so that's kind of where we are. We've been in the process now for some time. And so we're here for an update with an updated action. And so with that, I'll hand it off to Orlando.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman again, and Director. Today, if you could please turn to page 64 of the agenda packet for a copy of the staff report. So first, I'd like to start with the committee left off last time on the November 20th, 2024 meeting. Staff presented the following breakdown, which you can find on page 66 of the agenda packet, table A. It showed the preliminary cost estimate of a full modernization of the elevators. This includes the replacement of the hydraulic jacks as well, and work by others, mechanical, electrical, fire, life safety, in the amount of $525,000. The committee recommended a full modernization of both elevators, and on November 25th, 2024, the board meeting, the board authorized the general manager to issue a request for bids for the full modernization. Following the board meeting, West Basin's elevator consultant, ADIS, prepared technical specifications for several elevator components, including the hydraulic jacks. However, staff deemed the technical specification insufficient for a full modernization where, again, as I stated, we need specifications for mechanical, electrical, and fire life safety components. Their approach is more akin to design build, but West Basin cannot carry out a design build project of this type. In this case, the elevators per the public contract code. As a result, staff reached out to West Basin's all-call design consultants and issued a request for proposals on March 12, 2025 for design services to produce drawings, specifications, and a construction bid package for the full modernization scope of work. One proposal was received on April 3rd, 2025 from Hazen and Sawyer in the amount of $212,135. Staff was able to negotiate that down to $149,573. While staff was coordinating the design services efforts, the sole operating elevator at the DLD building began experiencing worsening leveling issues, similar to those observed in the now non-operating elevator prior to it being red tagged and placed out of service. Due to this, staff determined that it is critical to replace the hydraulic jacks immediately to avoid having two non-operational elevators. The general manager has authorized the replacement of hydraulic jacks as a critical repair, and staff have moved forward to issue a purchase order to Lift Tech Elevator Services for the replacement of the jacks. And while staff move forward with the replacement of hydraulic jacks, the board at this point can consider the additional cost for the full modernization scope. And you could find a breakdown on table B, which is on page 67 of the agenda packet. So by removing the hydraulic jacks, the total cost of the full modernization is now $515,000. If you did include the jacks, it brings that to a grand total of $675,000. So this is as you can see, an increase of $150,000, which is the scope of work that Hazen and Sawyer would work on, which is the mechanical, fire life safety, electrical components, along with the construction bid package. So these costs do not reflect any mobilization, demobilization, or any contingency costs on the project. So Staff is projecting a total all-encompassing project budget of $751,207 for the fiscal year 25-26. And should we continue to proceed with the board's previous modernization project scope of work? If approved, the modernization of the elevators, including all the way through construction, is scheduled to be completed on April of next year, 2026. So with that, I would like to read the recommendation that the board reaffirm the direction to the general manager to perform the full modernization of both elevators at the DLD building as directed by the board on November 25th, 2024, and in consideration of the updated budgetary and project information presented herein. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Director Fave, any questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. So I understand, having both items, the hydraulic system and then doing the construction bit project as well. You can't do one without the other, and I'm looking at this as, we gotta move forward with the total package. And I think this is the right total package on moving forward. So that's my comments.
Director Provide, I did want to make one correction. You can actually move forward with the hydraulic jack work alone. The board was specific in moving forward with the full modernization. The issue that Orlando mentioned with the increased leveling issue, it was such that we felt that immediate action was needed. And so while the hydraulic jack work could have been done in the full modernization scope, we needed to fix that before any additional delays may or may not happen. So that was the reason why we separated that out. And in fact, depending on the direction of the board of directors, if we were to separate it out, there are some cost savings that we would miss out on, correct? So we're happy to take direction, but with these additional costs that Orlando mentioned, we felt that we needed to reaffirm the direction from the board of directors, but we couldn't wait for the hydraulic jack work.
Got it. So, okay, so you mentioned that if we just start with the hydraulic system and then we still can do the other work as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for Fave? Okay, so clarification. Did we do the emergency repairs just on the hydraulic jack?
We've just authorized those to move forward.
All right, so that was done under your authority. Is that coming back to the board for ratification since it's over 150,000?
Correct.
So you will be bringing that
Once it's
back.
complete- Once it's complete and we receive all the invoices, we would come back for ratification.
All right, so thank you for that clarification. So it is after completion of the entire work, not at the time that you signed the CO?
That is correct, but again, I've always,
It's authorized.
Notified you already, yeah,
It
yeah.
needs to be done. We
Yes.
need to level the elevators, and so that needs to be done. So we'll spend that $160,000. That's a done deal. Or a little bit more if there's some change orders because they find something, but should be pretty straightforward on replacing of the hydraulic jack. So the modernization is additional work that is not necessary once we do the hydraulic jack. It can be done, it'll be nice to do, but the hydraulic jack really addresses the primary issues that we've been experiencing with the service level on the elevator.
that is correct. The hydraulic jack work, and if people can jump in if I misstate this, will cure the leveling issue that we're experiencing. But more importantly, it'll also get our other elevator operable, which we believe is an important step in this process to have two operable elevators.
Right now, we have two elevators.
Mhm.
Standing in front of them, elevator on the left works, elevator on the right doesn't. With the hydraulic jacks, they'll both be working, they'll both be level, they won't be bouncing around when you get to a floor or miss the floor by a few inches.
Okay.
So, and that's been the issue for a while, the overall performance. So that will be addressed. Both elevators will be working and they'll feel safe and secure. I think given the urgency they came up, and I support the general manager, taking action and just, moving forward with the emergency, is repair or replacement of the hydraulic jack. That this is probably something that we should just say, that's fine. If you feel it needs to go back to the board for further discussion, well, I guess we should do it on this one because it's been one of those items where, it's been discussed ad infinitum.
Yeah. And I would just, to,
But take it as an action item so we can have this discussion.
happy to do
Otherwise,
that.
I have to pull it.
I agree.
Okay, so it being 5:30, we have the information calendar. So Director Fave, is there anything you would like to hear from the information calendar that we can leave as user? And
Okay,
okay,
move on.
no closed session items. Any comments for future agenda items, Director Fave?
No, just the comment that I mentioned at the timeframe. When it comes to construction and then the breakdown of the contractors would be good too.
I don't have any other comments, so
Breakdown. Sorry. Down for the contractors for the previous item. For the fire.
I believe that was for the Torrance, but that's what I was gonna ask you to clarify.
it's all related to the Torrance refinery work.
Don't have contractors yet.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay. So if we're good with that, I don't have any additional comments. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.